So what happens when you've totally walked away from organized religion, but then you find yourself face to face with one of its most iconic figures? I mean, really. That's the incredible story of Reverend Frances Fayden. It's this amazing journey about finding faith in, well, the very last place you'd ever expect.
And this quote, I mean, this is where it gets really interesting. This is the central puzzle, right? Why on earth would Mother Mary show up for an interfaith minister who had absolutely no connection to the Catholic Church? It just doesn't seem to add up. But that one question, that's what kicks off this whole journey that really makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about religious lines and, what divine connection is all about. Okay, so before we get to the visitation itself, we've got to rewind a bit. To really understand why this happened, you have to look at the crisis that set the whole thing in motion. See, this wasn't some random out-of-the-blue event. Nope. It was the culmination, the breaking point, really, after a super long and honestly pretty painful spiritual search. I mean, if you look at her path, it's just a classic seeker's journey, isn't it? She had this burning desire to serve. First, she wanted to be a priest, but when that wasn't an option, she became an interfaith minister. She even moved into a spiritual community for 6 whole years, thinking, this is it, I've finally found my home. But then, it all fell apart. And that collapse left her with what she calls a spiritually broken heart. She was in a total dark night of the soul, just feeling completely lost, completely cut off from anything divine. And it's right there, in that rock-bottom place of despair, that a door cracks open to something she never, ever could have seen coming. So she's in this profound spiritual void, right? This total emptiness. And it's in that space that something absolutely wild starts to happen. It's like a series of dominoes just started to fall, one after the other, clicking into place and creating this opening for an experience that would, no exaggeration, change her life forever. And look, this wasn't some sudden flash of lightning from the sky. It was a slow burn, a real buildup. First, she gets this blessing that just cracks her heart open a little bit. Then, this incredible icon of Mother Mary literally shows up at her door, something she almost just brushed off. After that, she's in her meditation room, and she prays this incredibly intense, desperate prayer for help, for any kind of direction. So you have these 3 things setting the stage, right? And then, in July 2012, boom. As someone who works with energy, she felt it. A tangible, unmistakable shift in the room. There was a presence with her. Now get this. She didn't even dare to turn around. But she didn't have to. In her mind's eye, the picture was crystal clear. And her first thought wasn't, wow, this is amazing. It was pure, unadulterated shock. She's thinking, who is ever going to believe me? I'm not even Catholic. And honestly, that skepticism, that very human reaction, that's what makes this whole story so compelling. All right, so the connection is made, she's had this incredible experience, but here's the thing. This encounter wasn't about dragging her back into some specific religion, not at all. It was actually about blowing the doors wide open to a much, much bigger, more universal way of understanding this divine energy. And this next part is the absolute mic drop moment of the whole story. Frances finally says what's on her mind, her biggest hang-up. Mother Mary, I'm not Catholic. And the response she gets just shatters her whole reality. The figure smiles and she says, neither am I. Just, wow. With those 3 little words, Mother Mary went from being a strictly Catholic figure to something else entirely, something universal. So let's break that down because it's a huge shift in perspective. On the one hand, you've got the traditional view, right? A figure tied to one single religion, often associated with pain and suffering. But then you have what Frances experienced, which was something totally different, a universal energy of pure unconditional love, an energy that's joyful, that's accessible, that even has a sense of humor, and crucially, one that respects our free will. What she came to understand was that this energy just, well, it took on the form of Mother Mary because that was an image her brain could recognize and understand.
Okay, but this brings up a really good question, and maybe you're already thinking it. If this divine feminine energy is universal, then why are the messages we hear from Marian apparitions all over the world so different? Sometimes they even seem to contradict each other, right?
So what's the deal with that? Well, according to the research Frances did, the answer isn't in the message's source. No, it's all about the person receiving the message. The best way to think about it is like this. The person having the vision is a kind of filter or a lens. On one end, you might have what you could call a pure channel, like Saint Bernadette of Lourdes. She basically just said, here's what I saw, here's what I heard, with no personal spin. But then, on the other end, you have cases like the children at Fatima.
They saw these visions, but the message was filtered through everything they knew, their understanding of heaven and hell, and the very real trauma of World War I. So the divine message gets through, sure, but it's colored by their own unique personal lens. So let's bring this all back to today. What does any of this mean for us, right here, right now? Well, the guidance that Frances channels is super practical. It's all about giving us spiritual tools to navigate the, let's be honest, pretty chaotic world we're living in. And the message is incredibly clear and direct. With everything in the world constantly changing, we need to focus on the one thing that never does, our own spiritual connection. It's a call to take spirituality from something you do on the side, like a hobby, and make it a core daily practice. The thinking is, if you look for comfort outside yourself, in the news, on social media, in the chaos of the world, you're just going to find more stress. Real, lasting comfort has to come from within. And hey, here's a really practical tip she shares. Talk to the angels. Seriously. They're said to respond super fast, and they just live in this high frequency of light and joy. No, a huge piece of this practice is learning how to create your own miracles. But hold on, before your mind goes to, parting the Red Sea, we need to redefine the word miracle. It's not about breaking the laws of physics. It's much simpler. A miracle is just any time you experience something you didn't think was possible. It's a shift in your own perception. Okay, so this leads to a super practical 4-step formula you can actually use. Step 1 is gratitude. You start by listing at least 3 things you're grateful for. That just gets your energy in the right place. Step 2, state your goals, but write them in the present tense, as if they've already happened. This helps you embody that feeling of success right now. Step 3 is my favorite. It's pretty wild. At the end of the day, mentally review any negative stuff that happened and rewrite it. You literally imagine it going the way you wished it had gone, which helps release that negative emotional charge. And finally, step 4, you gotta track the evidence. Keep a journal of all the little synchronicities, the signs, the weird coincidences. It's about proving to your own logical brain that yes, the universe really is responding. When you step back and look at it, Frances Fayden's journey, from that spiritually broken heart all the way to this universal connection, is just a really powerful reminder, isn't it? It suggests that maybe guidance can show up in any form we're able to recognize, even the most unexpected ones. And maybe, just maybe, our deepest, most unshakable source of stability is already inside of us. Which kind of leaves us all with one final question to think about. In a world of constant change, where do you find your connection?